Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. David, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Very excited to be here.
Let's do this. So, tell us the story, David. What pulled you into consulting and got you towards procurement and the public sector in particular?
A very interesting story. So I was planning to become a doctor, and I realized very quickly that I'm not a big fan of patients. More importantly, I'm not a big fan of blood. So I studied a few years trying to do medicine, and as exciting as that was, I reached a point where I thought, I've got to do something else. My father at the time was very disappointed in me that I didn't want to become a doctor, and he decided to connect me with one of his friends who was an audit partner at Deloitte, and he managed to get me some work within London. So that was my first taste of consulting. And very quickly, I decided that I was going to move into procurement, which back in the early 2000s wasn't a particularly exciting niche. Nonetheless, they told me I need to think about this thing called sustainability and procurement, and I needed to define what that meant. So I decided to dive deep into healthcare and government procurement and was sent all over the world, lots of exciting trips, and worked in all sorts of different countries across Europe, Eastern Europe, Africa, and got a taste of what consulting is. So from there, I decided to niche into procurement as our expert area and decided that this was it for us, and decided to build a business out of that. And eventually I have now what is Ecovate, a procurement consultancy that specifically works on public sector procurement in the UK.
From doctor to consultant, that is quite a stretch, but you know what? I respect it. So tell us, what is the problem that you're solving now, David? Like, what do you help people achieve?
So we find the biggest problem in procurement, specifically within the public sector, is that there's a real lack of capacity and there's a real lack of capability. One of the things we found that is most interesting is that almost all of our clients that engage with us have got a particular need. It's often a last-minute need. It's often something that they are struggling with. That could be a complex project. It could be a time-sensitive project. It could be a money-sensitive project. And they come to us as experts in procurement. We often deal with very high-risk procurement. Some of the biggest procurements in public sector in the UK have been delivered by our team. And they need someone that they can trust, someone that understands their challenges, and then they work with us very closely to ensure that the project remains on track. I think for us, the biggest area that we found is that not only is that the biggest sort of risk for them, it's then what happens after that. So often a procurement is run, and then it's handed over to the business as usual team. And that's when it generally, the wheels start to come off. So we've started to expand our services into those types of areas as well, to really ensure that a contract is well bedded down, the KPIs are in place, they're performing as they should be. And that gives us a unique advantage as a company. And we haven't spread ourselves too thin, and we've really niched into this. So we're within a consultancy niche, within a niche, being procurement experts.
So I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that you're probably helping procurement departments or companies that don't have a procurement department. Do you have a specific niche, a specific industry, specific company size that you typically help? Like, how does procurement consulting work exactly? And who decides to hire the procurement consultants?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we specialize in hospitals, and we do anything from the new hospital program, which is to build new hospitals across the UK. We also specialize in medical items. So for instance, we would buy heart valves that could be priced between £1,500 up to £3,000. And you won't believe it, that a number of the suppliers that are offering exactly the same product to the same customers, even if they are geographically nearby, would offer the £3,500 to £3,500 heart valve instead of the lowest price that they offer it at, which is 1,500. So immediately we've got a huge opportunity for savings. And most of the times we like to sell to the CFO of each organization. The reason being is procurement is still seen as a back office function. It's seen as someone that buys widgets and those types of items, where actually the service-based contracts are the real money savers for the NHS, especially legacy and old traditional contracts. We also find things like catering, we find things like hard facilities management that are really resource intensive. And most of our clients would prefer a gold standard, but actually when it comes down to it, they prefer a bronze price. So we would give a bronze service to the contractors and they price it appropriately. And then as the contracts are negotiated, we get to a point where we end up with a silver service and then a silver pricing. So it's our role to facilitate that, to have the market knowledge, to have the data, to analyze and compare, and then to sit on the client side to help the client really do that. And the final point is that a lot of this is quite litigious. So outside of obstetrics and general medicine, the number of litigations that are happening in the UK are primarily towards procurement when it comes to public sector. So that becomes a big risk area. And if you get that wrong, according to the UK regulation, you end up in a situation where potentially you now have to pay for errors in your procurement process, which ends up costing £500,000 to £1.5 to £2 million. So it's really important to get this bit right. And you can see why a lot of these organizations that we work with are more inclined to work with people like us that are really experts and niche experts within procurement, as opposed to someone who's more of a generalist that is buying, you know, more widget type products and stationery and things like that.
What has worked for you, David, to get in touch with those people? Because it's a bit of a, I mean, I like that it's a niche of a niche, like procurement for hospitals. How do you get in front of the decision maker? Like, what has worked for you marketing-wise to get the right attention and make them understand that there is value in that perceived back office function? Like, how have you solved that problem?
It's a problem that we've been trying to work out for a number of years, and we've always been quite anti any sort of marketing or PR. And we employed a company that helped us tremendously get the message out there that actually PR is better than marketing for us. And PR by definition is others telling others about how good we are. So we've relied heavily on word of mouth as our main area for growth and our networking within those individuals. And we went through an avatar process to look at who our ideal clients are. And the one thing we noticed is that actually most of our clients, as in decision makers, are by chance more female CFOs. They all are of a particular age where they know that they are in a financial situation. They need someone who's going to really deliver, who's really going to help them. And they need to have the trust element, which I think is really important as well. So we have tried all sorts of different marketing tactics. We've tried LinkedIn, we've tried email and outreach campaigns, and that's been extremely high volume. But unfortunately, the return on that has been absolute, almost zero. So we've doubled down on our relationship and how do we build those relationships. And given it's a public sector organization, the one area that we can't do is take our clients out for nice meals or, you know, take them to the football or anything like that, because it's public money and it needs to be spent appropriately. So we've tried a different approach, which is how do we give back to the organizations that we're working with? So we often give back to the various hospitals that we work with and government organizations. They generally have a charity. We donate a bit of money towards that. We turn up and give awards and prizes and those types of things. And we try and put our name out there as much as possible at all the relevant events where you've got finance directors, you've got directors of procurement turning up. And often we would use our existing network to introduce us to new potential clients with a similar sort of avatar that we described earlier. And that's worked really well for us. And the final point is that I do a lot of cold calling. So we know that a number of our clients move around from one organization to another, and we generally would follow those particular clients. But the biggest win for me has been just having a conversation with people. And I know it sounds strange that effectively a CEO can do that, but I actually make time in my day, almost every day of the week, to give my clients a call and find out what's happening in their lives in terms of the work that we're doing, anything that may be relevant in terms of change in legislation or rules. But then we also focus heavily on how do we then, add value to our clients. And I think that's been a big win for us is those cold calls. And I get to feel the pulse of the business really well. And you get to hear the same sort of challenges that each of the CFOs and directors of procurement are having. And they mostly struggle with resource, having the right capacity and having the right capability.
Okay, there is too much gold here that I want to dig a little bit further into. So PR is not something we get to talk a lot about on the show. So I'm curious to get a bit more juice out of you, David, and how you do that. It's funny because GHA works with some PR consultants, not as clients, but partners, because people doing PR sometimes want to start their own podcast to keep on doing this. So I'm a bit familiar with the world, but I haven't had any consultants over the last 3 months talk to me about PR for their firm. So how do you do that? How do you make it work? How do you get results? What do you recommend our listeners to look for when looking for PR support? Give us the whole shebang.
Yeah, sure. So for us, the PR is about how do we take what we do particularly well, and instead of us going on LinkedIn and other platforms to tell everyone how wonderful we are, we actually get our clients to do that for us. So one of the methods that we've used that's been very successful is that we would have a breakfast or a brunch morning. We'll invite a number of CFOs. We'll invite one of them to speak on our behalf about some topic, not necessarily around procurement. And we bring those people together. It's a very intimate environment where people get together. Most of them know each other in some way, shape or form, or they've had experience working with them. And we start to talk through these individual topics. And then we would bring with us either a legal firm, or we would bring a separate sort of clinical firm that's innovating in the area of sustainability. I mentioned to you about heart valves. There's a company that started putting together heart valves that's got a net zero capability. And we talk through some of the topics and the issues related to that, including price. So that's been one particular channel for us that's worked extremely well. The second channel that's worked really well is at events. There's a finance director forum, there's a procurement director forum, and we sponsor some of these events. And we just have our name up there, and we can give a presentation on a particular topic where we've described how we do things. But the ultimate one for us is the word of mouth, where we're asking each of our clients, is there anyone else that you know within your network who may benefit from the type of work that we've delivered for you? And again, it's very niche, it's very bespoke to what they require. So they know that if someone is referring a particular organization, we're not going to go in and do a turnaround piece. We're not going to validate any of the accounts. We're not going to do any of that sort of change management piece. Specifically, we can do that within procurement, but that's how we've got it to work for us. And no amount of money we've spent on marketing has actually paid us back any other dividends in comparison to the PR work that we've done.
I like that a lot. Tell me more about cold outreach. How do you do that?
So the cold outreach is one of my favorite ways of speaking to clients. And I mentioned earlier that it's the way that I've got my finger on the pulse of the business. And most of the time I follow a very simple script, which is around ensuring that we're not interrupting someone unnecessarily. We're not there to waste their time. So ordinarily I would open up with a very quick, hello, I'm David, the CEO from Ecovate. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Is now a good time to speak? And almost 9 times out of 10, I will be told yes, but make it quick. And then I start to go into our little pitch around who we've helped. And we reference other clients so that they are familiar with those clients. We've done work for the Walmart Group. We've done work for Discovery Group in Africa. We've done a lot of work for the NHS and other public sector organizations. So depending on who the CFO is, the research that we've done in advance of that particular CFO really helps us to fine-tune that bit. And then we just have a conversation, which is to say, well, you're in a situation where you're in charge. You've got hundreds of millions or billions of pounds under you from a management perspective. How are things going? Are things going well? Do you think you can improve? And the whole objective is trying to set up a follow-up meeting. And that's been very, very successful. And I just find that almost all of the conversations I'm having, I'm getting to meet someone for the first time. I'm getting to put my name out there. I'm getting to know a bit more about them. And it's just, a really good way to have other conversations with people. And sometimes we get introductions to others. Every single call I place, I ask them if there's anyone else that may be interested in what we're offering, or anyone else they can think that might be relevant. And almost all of the times they refer me to someone else, which again is another lead that we can then follow up and start to warm up in a sales cycle or a funnel, so to speak.
I'm going to dig even a little bit further on this, David, because I love it. And you're giving me 2 things that I don't get the opportunity to talk a lot about on the show. So now I'm going to double down on this. And of course, it's as much as you're comfortable sharing.
Of course.
How do you find the phone number of the people that you want to call in the first place? How do you build your list of people to reach out to?
So we are lucky in that the UK does have a number of different databases of individuals and people. So the first thing we do is identify the people by email address, find out whether they're still relevant and in post, and that would be checking their website. We would also go and have a look at the list to corroborate the list, and we used, I think, 3 different platforms to identify who's on that particular list. And then sometimes we get their mobile numbers. But actually the sneak trick that we've used for many years is by using our CFO and Director of Procurement link and ask them to send us either a WhatsApp or another method to give us the name and contact details of another person. And we then generally call them after 5 p.m. To reach out to them. So that's how we've collated a lot of the mobile numbers to be able to have those initial conversations.
I like that. Do you do a lot of research before you reach out to those people? So you build the phone list, the contact list. What level of, the reason I'm asking this is to put a little bit of context. I think a lot of B2B coaches and consultants are afraid to do cold calling, or they don't like doing cold calling because they see it as intrusive and not maybe the best guardian of their brand whatsoever, although most of them don't have a brand, but that's another topic. And it's like, it can be such a great tool to build relationships, to get in touch with people, to get business, if done right. Obviously, if you're like way too heavy and triple, quadruple, I don't even know the next one in English, but like dial without an answer and keep on, like there is a way to do it. And I like to think like an ounce of pre is worth a pound of post. So how much prep do you do before you pick up the phone and call those CEOs? Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's one of our probably most important tasks is that we first establish whether the organization we're trying to deal with has any sort of need for procurement. And generally that's either published somewhere on their website or there's been some information in the press about it. So that's the first step. The second step is that we build it across our avatar. And one of the things we found is that, again, using the same avatar as before, we generally have a higher success rate with the female leaders in the CFO posts. We also then spend a lot of time trying to understand who that person is, what are their interests, what are the things that they are involved in. Now, I'm not going to pick up the phone and say, well, you're an Aston Villa fan and I'm a Man U fan and let's have a debate about that. That's never going to work. But it's always useful context to try and set that picture in my own mind as to who I'm talking to and what might be relevant to them. And then we try and look at where those pain points are that the client will have. And let's be honest, all of us have pain points in our lives. And none of us enjoy having a pain point of discussion around things that are not relevant. And I think especially for the younger generation where people may be afraid to pick up the phone and have a conversation, the way that I've always viewed it is that you're just having a great conversation with someone. And in fact, one of our cold calls that I did led to a piece of work that was in excess of £1 million a year worth of revenue for us. Because I'd given them a cold call, I apologized that I was interrupting them, but given it was almost 6 o'clock in the evening, they were happy to have a chat. And just that day, he'd had a big problem with his procurement function, and he was desperate to get a resolution to it. So we discussed all the options, we discussed all the challenges that he had, but none of it was a sales pitch. It was just ideas that I was bouncing off of him, and he was bouncing the ideas off of us. And then that led to, this sounds really good, it might be good to have a conversation in person. And we set up the next meeting, and we went through and introduced ourselves and had a great discussion. And at the end of it, he asked us for the work, for a proposal. And we could probably do 90% of the work, and there was about 10% that we would struggle to fulfill. And we managed to refer him to someone else. And he came back to me and said, why are you not giving us, why are you not going to do that? And I said to him, because I'm not going to offer you a service that we don't deliver. So that's the power of a cold call, and to be able to get through to these people. And most people are respectful, especially if you're not going to be disrespectful to them and waste their time with something that is just not relevant or specific. But the research up front makes all the difference.
I absolutely love that. And I guess that answers the question of like, how do you sell? What does sales motion look like? How do you keep those clients though, David? Like what's in consulting, right? Growth happens when you're able to acquire new customers and when you're able to retain the customers that you acquire. And you mentioned like £1 million per year, which I suspect means you had that client for at least 2 years. How do you retain? How do you get people, especially on the procurement consulting, right? Once you fix the process and you told them, stop buying this, start buying like that, look at those, it's done, right? Or is it? So how do you retain?
So our methodology has always been that sales is delivery and delivery is sales. So as important as what it is to win a client, it's even more important to really delight and deliver for our client. So once we've won a piece of work, we will sit down as a team and we'll go through the very first topic, which is the pain points that the client has. And we note that down on our system around what those pain points are. And we make it absolutely clear. So for instance, they may be frustrated with their in-house team, or they may be frustrated with the service they got from someone else that had too little communication, or too many reports, or they didn't listen enough. And we set that down as the sort of core of the project, the main project description. And then we go through the list of all the activities that need to be done. We then have a checkpoint on a monthly basis where one of my team will, that's not working on the project, will reach out to the client and have a conversation with that client to say, just checking in if everything's okay. Are you happy with the level of service? Are you happy with that? And what generally then happens is that the client then feels that we really are all over what we're doing. And it's not something that's just a task for us. We're trying to get it wrapped up as soon as possible. And we really want to delight our clients. So as much as what is important to go out and win the work, delivery is absolutely key for us. And the more we deliver, they then recommend us for additional work. And to your point, if we go in on a specific project to deliver a sterile services department, we could really hit the ball out the park and deliver for them. And they may then turn around and say, actually, we've got another project here that we've got no idea how we're going to resource it. Do you have the capacity? Do you have the ability to help us? And of course, we would love to help them from there. So that's generally how we've grown on a very organic, very simple, old school basis.
So I love this. And in theory, I love sales is delivery, delivery is sales. One of the things we talk often on the show is if you can start building during the sales process so that you double down on that authority, on that trust together with the clients, and you make them see the outcome and be part of the building the solution. And then it's just about, cool, you want us to do the rest, you want us to like work on this for 3 to 6 months, let's rock and roll. We don't often talk about delivery is sales though. So how do you implement this? Because obviously the number one answer I get is, yeah, we deliver excellent work, which makes sense. I mean, if you aren't, probably look at this first. But like on the day-to-day, David, how do you implement delivery is sales? How do you make that work?
We train all of our staff in a particular way. So a lot of people that join the public sector or join a UK-based company to learn about procurement end up learning about all the different processes, procedures, and things like that. We've taken a different approach and we train people on very specific things. So when you first join us, you start off learning about RFQs, and you will do over 150 RFQs before you can progress to the next level. And at that level, you learn more about the next procedure and process until eventually you get to lead these really big projects. So that's one method that we've used. The second one is it's really baked into our standard operating process and procedures, because we have a QA process where our staff are producing the work. We can tell you precisely how many hours and days it takes to run a particular process for a particular type of category. And we can do that very quickly. But we also know the points where documents need to be double-checked and QA'd. And all we do is every single time we have an interaction with our client, we then make note of any issues or any concerns that they have. So the person who's doing the review as part of our QA will review those elements first and be really clear on what those are. And each time we go back in, we refer to the original project setup, which is around what is it that's going to really delight this client. And at the end of that, we do a survey with the client and a sort of telephone call afterwards just to talk them through it, to make sure that they were happy and there was nothing that was wrong with the service. So it's very much our ethos as a company. We have to delight our clients in order to really deliver for them when it comes to a project. And again, we're really clear about what we can't do. So it makes it a very easier or much easier exercise.
Back to that trust aspect. I like it a lot. So I like your methods, obviously, David. We got to dig a little bit into them. Let me ask you this. What's your number one challenge right now? What is the one nut that you're trying to crack that's, once you crack, you're going to take the whole thing to the next level? What would that be for you?
So our biggest challenge at the moment is our competitors. We've got really big firms, the sort of big four consulting firms, and a lot of them are getting involved in procurement, but none of them are really in our space when it comes to subject matter experts. So we do subcontract a lot of work to them, and we support them on different projects and assignments. But it's sort of given us a bit of an association with those organizations. So we really are trying to stand on our own 2 feet in that respect. So we only do maybe 10% of our work through them, but the rest of it is on our own. And we've grown ourselves now. We're just turned 10 years old as a company, and we're trying to expand our services to other public sector organizations within the UK. We're also looking at the UAE. We're looking at other parts of Europe under the PCR Act that may need our services. And for the first time, we're also considering the US, which has got a completely different procurement system. So it's all about the growth for us as a company to be able to deliver those high quality services. And because we're a niche within a niche, it becomes very difficult to find other organizations that do precisely what we do, especially in the markets that we operate in.
How are you going to tackle this challenge? I had this conversation yesterday with someone who is raising funds, who is helping someone raise funds for an AI company. And it's the famous question of the investors are asking why can't OpenAI do this? And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's in 2000s when it was why can't Google do this? In our case, it's why can't the big four do this? And I know a little bit about that. So how are you going to walk around this challenge, David?
So we think that our model of delighting our clients and servicing them is the sort of baseline of where we're at. And I think it's about building the trust again within these other organizations. We've also decided to develop our own AI platform, which is designed to be a sticky product that is left behind. So when we've finished at a client, they continue to use our platform and they continue to reach out to us. I physically am spending quite a bit of time in different parts of the world, roughly 3 months at a time, to be able to really network and get in under the faces of people, to meet them, to introduce them, to understand what the markets are like and who they're working with. So we're spending a lot of time doing that, and we've got a lot of UK connections that are working all over the world who've worked with us, and they've recommended us into other organizations. So one of them is the World Development Bank, for example, and all of them have said that they have an allergy to using some of the big four because there's the high level, high impact people at the top, but when it comes down to the actual delivery, they are struggling with that. So I think if you're going to walk the walk, you've got to be able to, talk the talk, you're going to have to walk the walk, because it's at that high level, isn't it, as well as at the lower end.
As a former PwC senior consultant, I have no idea what you're talking about. No, that does make sense. Although I will say, so I get it. I agree. That does make sense. One thing, so I loved my time at PwC because we're talking about big fours. And I think those firms are in the consulting business, but the business they are really in is in the recruitment, the hiring, and the training business. It's all about talent. And from my experience when I was there, the training and the education that you receive and the way they hold your hands in the storm, though, because there is so much going on and you need to work a lot. It's a fantastic school. But yes, you tend to be delivering as a more junior person and be more on the strategic aspects when you get senior. So that does make sense. I guess there is a position of strength wherever you are in the market, right? If you're the big firm, you have the legacy, you have the brand, you have the big teams. If you're a smaller firm, you have you're going to be working directly with me. Yes, you can work with PwC, but you're not going to work with the big guys. You're going to get delivered by so there is always an angle to be taken to differentiate. David, absolutely loved it. I wonder if we shouldn't do an encore where we talk 100% about cold outreach and PR, because those are some of my favorite topics. But thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Yeah, brilliant. And thanks for having me. Really, really delighted to have been here and being able to speak. The best place to reach me is on LinkedIn, and I can post that in a chat if that's helpful. It's just at the end, it's Dave DeVette. So feel free to reach out to me there. I'd love to be able to speak with you.
We will put all the links in the description. What I can say for sure, David, is that you've gained at least one new connection out of this interview? Me. I've just added you on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you for having me. All the very best. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.
How was that, Dave?
Very good. I thought it was excellent. Thank you for your time. How did you find it?
So, I mean, I'm heavily biased. I love marketing and sales. You had some things to say that most B2B coaches and consultants don't have to say because they rely on referrals mainly, and they do a bit of content. So you gave me the opportunity to talk about PR and cold outreach. I was like, oh, if we could spend a whole hour on this, I think it would be so valuable. But who knows, maybe for another episode. So no, I liked it a lot. Next steps. So we're going to send you the link towards the recording in the next 24 hours. Why is it not saying end of stream?
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.